You paid $20 for that sack of feed, maybe 22 now, at the store in town. You set it in the corner of the shed, and 4 weeks later you are standing there looking at an empty bag again. 6 hens. That is $240 a year for 6 birds that were supposed to be saving you money, and that price only ever goes the one way. Now, there is a thing sitting in my chicken run behind me that you have already seen. It is on the front of this video. It cost me 4 old pallet boards and a piece of wire, and it has been feeding my hens since the first week of April. Stay with me, because 2/3 of the way through this, I am telling you the honest part, the part that goes against the title of this video. Nobody tells you that part. My name is Henry. I live up a holler in eastern Kentucky, on the same ground my great-great-grandfather cleared with a mule and a grubbing hoe, and I am the 5th generation to feed stock on it. 11 acres, and most of it stands on its edge. 19 laying hens, 2 roosters, a pair of milk goats, and a garden that is mostly rock. Here is the number that matters, though, and I want to give it to you before I give you anything else, because talk is cheap and a bag is not. I bought one 50-pound sack of layer pellets the second week of March. One. It is August now. That sack is sitting on a pallet in my shed, and it is still better than half full, and I have been getting 11 to 14 eggs a day out of that yard all summer long. I did not do that with a trick. I did it with the thing on the front of this video, and about 20 minutes a week. So let me tell you what it is, and then I will tell you the part that makes it work, because those are 2 different things, and the second one is the one everybody gets wrong. It is a box. That is the whole of it. A wooden frame, 4 feet long by 2 feet wide, about 5 or 6 inches deep, laid flat on the dirt inside the run. There is no bottom in it. There is no lid on it in the sense you are thinking of. It is not a coop, and it is not a planter, and it did not cost me a nickel. And the wood is not what makes it work. The wood is just wood. What makes it work is what I stapled across the top of it, and if you get that part wrong, you will have built yourself a very nice square of bare dirt inside of one afternoon. Here is how you build it. Take 4 pallet boards, and if you do not have a pallet leaned up behind your shed right now, then you are the only person in these mountains who does not. Cut them. Screw them into a rectangle, corner to corner, 4 feet by 2. You can use scrap 2x4s, an old bed rail, whatever is laying out there going gray in the weather. It does not have to be square, and it does not have to be pretty. Mine is neither one. Then, inside that frame, on the bare dirt, you scratch in some seed, whatever is cheapest at the feed store by the pound: wheat, oats, cereal rye, a little red clover, a handful of bird seed millet, if that is what you have got. Rake it in, water it if the good Lord does not, and then walk away and leave it be. Now here is the part that is worth the whole video. Over the top of that frame, you staple a piece of 1-inch wire mesh. 1 inch, not hog panel and not cattle panel, because those squares are 4 and 6 inches across, and a hen will get her whole head and shoulders through and tear the thing to pieces in a morning. You want the 1-inch stuff sold as welded wire or rabbit wire, and you want it stapled down tight and flat. What that wire does is this: the greens grow up through it. The hen puts her head down and crops off the tops, the same as a cow does in a pasture, and she gets every bit of the green she can reach. But she cannot get her feet in there. She cannot scratch. And scratching is the whole problem, because a hen does not eat a plant, she destroys it. She rakes the crown out of the ground with her toes, and she is on to the next one. And that is why the run you are standing in right now is bare, packed dirt with a little ring of green just outside the fence where she cannot reach. With that wire on top, she never touches the root. So it grows back and back and back all season long off of one sowing. 2 more things about it, and then we will move on. Let it get 4 or 5 inches of growth on it before you ever let the birds at it. And that is usually 2 to 3 weeks in the spring. If you turn them loose on it the first week, they will crop it down to the crown, and it will sulk on you for a month. And build 2 of them, not 1, so you can put a board over the top of the tired one and let it come back while they work the other. That is the object. Now let me tell you why nobody ever told you about it. Go and search up what to feed chickens for free and see what comes back at you. Moringa, banana stems, water hyacinth, azolla out of a pond, sweet potato vines by the bushel. Every one of those is real, and every one of those grows beautifully in places that are not here. Moringa is a tropical tree. It will not take a killing frost. Banana stems are not a thing I have ever seen in Perry County. And I want to be fair about sweet potatoes, because they truly will grow in these mountains and the vines truly are good chicken feed. But you have got about 6 weeks at the tail end of summer when there is enough vine to matter, and 6 weeks is not a system. It is a coincidence. So why does the advice keep coming out that way? It is not because anybody is lying to you. It is the arithmetic of the thing. A list of tropical plants gets watched in every country on Earth, all 12 months of the year. A cold climate list only gets watched in the cold half of the map and only really in the half of the year when folks are worried about it. So the advice gets written for the biggest map and not for the person standing in the rain. And you are the person standing in the rain. You have got wet clay that turns to grease in March. You have got shade under hardwood, because the whole eastern half of this country is trying to be a forest at all times, and your yard is losing that argument. You have got ground that runs downhill in every direction, and you have got a killing frost in October and another one that shows up in April after everything has already come up, just to be hateful about it. That is not a worse hand than Texas. It is a different hand, and it happens to be a very good hand for exactly the plants I'm going to show you. Which brings me to the part where I stop giving you a list. Because a list is what everybody gives you, and a list is why none of it ever sticks. A hen does not need plants. A hen needs different things at different times of the year, and the plants are just how you deliver them. In the spring, she needs protein because she is laying hard and she is building an egg a day out of whatever you hand her. In the fall, she needs protein even worse because she is molting, and a feather is very nearly pure protein, and she is growing a whole new coat of them out of her own body. Those are your 2 protein seasons, and they are the 2 everybody misses. In the summer, she needs bulk green, wet, leafy, cheap volume. It keeps her gut working, and it is where the color in a yolk comes from, and I mean that literally. The orange in a good yolk comes in through her beak, and no other way. And in the winter she needs 2 things that have nothing to do with either one of those. She needs energy, because she is burning it just to stand there and be warm. And she needs something to do with her day, and I will come back to that one, because it is worth more than folks think. Spring, protein. Summer, green. Fall, protein. Winter, energy and occupation. That is not a list you have to memorize. That is a calendar, and you already know what month it is. Now, none of this is mine. My granny had a name for the ground it came off of, and it was not a garden. The garden was the garden in rows, with a fence. Behind the kitchen there was the truck patch, and some folks around here called it the sass patch, sass being the old word for the greens and the roots you actually ate. It was rough ground. It was never weeded properly. It grew turnips and mustard and beans and whatever came up on its own. And the hens were in it the entire time, in among the rows, scratching and hunting and getting into trouble. The patch fed the family and the stock at the same time. That was not a homestead philosophy. That was just how the ground was laid out. The patch had hens in it the way the house had a porch. And that is the whole answer. So let me say it one time, plainly, and then I will spend the rest of this video showing it to you. You are never going to buy your way out of a feed bill, because the bag is not a product, it is a substitute. What you can do is stop asking one paper sack to be a hen's entire living and start taking that living off the ground you already own in the order the year hands it to you. A frame in the green months, a patch of weeds you quit mowing, and a summer that you cut and hang up in the dark and feed back to her in December. Right, 5 plants. And I am going to give you a positive way to identify every one of them because I do not want you taking my word for anything you are about to put in front of a living animal. The first one is stinging nettle, and I know exactly what you just thought because I thought it too. Nettle dried out runs somewhere around 20 to 25% crude protein by most of the analyses I have seen, which puts it right in the neighborhood of the layer feed you are paying money for. It is also loaded with carotene, which is the yolk color I mentioned. Look for it where the ground is rich and damp and somebody has kept animals before you. Old barn lots, the low corner of the pasture along the creek, the edge of the hollow where the leaves pile up. To identify it, look at the stem. It is square, 4-sided. You can feel the corners with your fingers if you have gloves on, and you had better have gloves on. The leaves come off in pairs directly across from each other. They are toothed all the way around like a saw, and the whole plant is covered in fine hairs that are the business end of it. The sting is a real thing, but it is a fragile thing. Cut it with gloves and a pair of shears, let it lay and wilt for a day, and the sting is gone. Dry it, and the sting is gone. Chop it into a mash, same thing. The birds will not touch it standing up, and they will clean it up entirely once it has wilted. The second one is lamb's quarters, and this one has been trying to tell you what it is for about 400 years, because the old English name for it is fat hen. That is not a coincidence, and it is not clever marketing. It got that name because poultry did well on it, and folks noticed, and the name stuck. It comes up thick in disturbed dirt. The edge of the garden, the spot where you parked the tractor, anywhere you turned soil over last year and did not plant anything. Here is your identification mark, and it is a good one. Turn over a young leaf near the top of the plant and look at the underside. It has a white, mealy, dusty-looking bloom on it, like somebody dusted it with flour. Now rub it with your thumb. It comes off, and your thumb is white. That bloom is the thing to look for. The leaf shape itself is roughly like a goose's foot, wider at the bottom with a couple of shoulders on it. The third one is chickweed, and this is your winter plant, which makes it the most useful one on this list for our purposes. Chickweed comes on in the cool, and it will keep growing right through a mild spell in January when there is not another green thing standing in your yard. It mats up low and soft in the shade, along the north side of the house, in the damp corner where you never can get grass to take. The identification mark on chickweed is the best one I know. Take a stem, hold it in both hands, and pull it apart slowly. Do it slow. Inside, there is a fine white elastic thread that stretches and holds on after the green part has already broken. There is a second one too, if you want to be certain. Look close at the stem, and you will see a single line of fine hairs running up just one side of it, and that line switches to the other side every time it passes a pair of leaves. I have never found another plant in this yard that does either one. The fourth is not a weed at all, and it is the one I would plant first if you only planted one thing this fall: turnip greens and collards. Sow a bed of them in late August or early September, and they will feed you and the birds both deep into the winter. And here is the good part. A hard frost makes the leaf sweeter, and that is not folklore. The plant pulls starch out of storage and turns it into sugar to keep from freezing solid, and you and the hens are the beneficiaries of that. Now, how you feed them matters more than the greens do. Do not pull leaves off and scatter them on the ground. In 10 minutes they are trampled into the mud and fouled, and you have wasted the whole thing. What you do is cut the entire stalk, root and all, and hang it from a piece of baling twine at about the height of a hen's head so it swings. A swinging stalk will keep a flock busy for an hour on a February morning, and that is your winter occupation, the one I said I would come back to. A bored flock in a small run in the winter turns on itself and starts picking feathers out of each other's backs, and once that starts, it is miserable to stop. A stalk of greens on a string is the cheapest thing I know of to head that off. The fifth is comfrey, and comfrey is the deep one. It sends down a taproot that will go several feet, and it pulls up potassium and minerals out of subsoil that nothing else in your yard is reaching. Plant it once in a corner where you are not going to change your mind because it is nearly impossible to get rid of. Cut it 4 or 5 times a season, let it wilt a day, and throw it in. And I have got a warning attached to comfrey that I will come to in about 2 minutes, so keep it in your head. 2 more that Granny had, and that never show up in these videos, because they are ours. The first is mast. Come October, the oaks let go, and if you have got white oaks, you are in luck, because white oak acorns run a good bit lower in tannin than the red oak ones, and the birds will work them harder. Do not haul acorns in by the bushel and dump them, because the tannin is real, and too much of it does them no good. What you do is let them at what falls under the trees at their own pace, along with the drops from any old apple or pear on the place. Windfall apples in October are free calories that are otherwise going to rot into the ground. The second is clabber. If you have got a milk cow or a couple of goats, set the extra raw milk out in a crock in a warm room and let it sour and set up thick. That is clabber, and it was standard chicken feed in these mountains for 200 years, protein and calcium both, and the souring works through most of the milk sugar that a bird has trouble with anyway. Give it to them in a pan, but do not overdo it because too much dairy will give a flock the scours in short order, and you will know it when you see it. Now here is the honest part I promised you. This is not going to take your feed bill to 0. I know good and well what the front of this video says, and I am telling you plain that it is not going to 0, and anybody who tells you different is selling you something or has never done it through a February. Here is my true number, and it is mine, not a study. From April to about the end of October, between the frame and the weeds and the truck patch, my buying dropped to somewhere around half of what it was. That is the 1 sack from March still sitting half full in August. In the dead of winter, I am buying feed again like everybody else, and I am not ashamed of it. What I get on top of the money is a better feather on the birds, a deeper yoke than anything I have ever bought, and hens that have something to do all day. A quarter to a half off, honestly earned, is a real thing. Free is not. And here are the 3 ways to get this wrong, which matter more than any of the 5 plants. Comfrey first, as promised. Comfrey contains compounds that are hard on a liver in quantity, and that is well documented. It is a supplement, not a bulk feed. A few leaves a couple of times a week for a flock, not a wheelbarrow of it every day. I feed it, and I am glad to have it, and I feed it small. Second, pokeweed. Somebody is going to put poke in the comments of this video within about an hour of it going up, because everybody's family ate poke salad in the spring, and that is true, and I have eaten it myself. But poke salad is only safe for people after it is boiled off and drained 2 or 3 times, and the root and the mature stalk and the berries are genuinely poisonous. I do not feed poke to birds, and I do not let it stand in the run. There is plenty else growing. Pull it out. Third, and this is the one that will actually cost you a bird in this climate: moldy corn. A wet Appalachian summer is a laboratory for mold, and some of the molds that grow on corn and grain produce toxins that poultry are especially sensitive to. If a scoop of corn smells musty, or it is caked up, or there is any fuzz or off-color on it, it goes on the burn pile and not in the trough. Keep your feet up off the floor, Keep it in a metal can with a lid, and do not buy more than a month at a time in August. Same goes for anything you cut. Do not gather greens off a roadside the county has sprayed or off a lawn that somebody has treated. You cannot see it, and the hen certainly cannot. Now let me give you the best thing in this entire video, and it is not mine either. It came from my granny, and she got it from hers. June, before the nettle flowers. That timing is not optional, because once it goes to bloom, the leaf gets gritty and coarse, and it is past its best. Cut it with gloves in the morning after the dew is off. Tie it into bundles about as thick as your wrist, loose bundles. I want you to hear that word, because a tight bundle molds in the middle where you cannot see it, and you will not find out until December when you open one up and it is black in the heart of it, loose, so the air can walk through it. Then hang the bundles upside down, head down, in the dark. The barn loft, the smokehouse, an unused stall, anywhere out of the light and out of the weather. Granny always said you hang it head down so the good runs down into the leaf. Now, whether that part is true or not, I honestly cannot tell you, but the dark part is true, because sunlight bleaches the color right out of it, and that color is the carotene, and the carotene is the yolk. 3 weeks, and it is crisp. You crumble the leaf off the stalk into a feed sack, and you hang the sack up in the dry, and then you forget about it entirely until you need it. And here is when you need it. It is December. It is black dark at 6 in the morning, and there is frost standing on the top rail of the gate. There is not one green thing in that yard, not one, and the birds have been eating pellets out of a bag for 6 weeks, and they know it. You mix a warm mash in the bucket, and you crumble 2 good handfuls of that dried nettle down into it, and the steam comes up off it into the cold, and you go out the door with it. And they come. Across the frozen yard at a flat run, the whole lot of them, because they have not smelled green in a month and a half. Inside of 2 weeks, the yolks come back up, in the middle of the winter. Granny never once said she was saving money on feed. She would not have known what you meant. She said she was putting the summer up, and she said it the same way she said it about the beans and the corn and the jars on the shelf in the cellar, because to her it was the same job. She was not being tight. She was putting up July and taking it back down in January. Nobody paid me anything to tell you any of this. There is nothing in this video to buy. You cannot buy a stinging nettle, which is precisely why nobody advertises one. And here is the thing that gets me. There are more people keeping a few hens in the backyard right now than there have been in a long, long time, and hatcheries have had a hard time keeping up in the last few years, especially any year the egg price jumps. Good. But almost none of those folks were ever handed one word of this, and it is not their fault. The chain broke. Somewhere in there, a generation went to work in town, and the granny who knew which weed was which died, and nobody wrote any of it down, because why would you write down something everybody knows? And into that gap came a shelf of paper sacks with a hen printed on the front of them. So 3 things this week, not 5, not 10, 3. Build the frame, 4 boards, and remember it is the wire that does the work. 1 inch stapled flat. Learn 2 weeds, just 2. Go out there and find the white bloom on the underside of a lamb's quarters leaf and pull a chickweed stem apart and find that thread. 2 is plenty for this year. And cut 1 bundle of something and hang it up in the dark. Just to have done it once. Then get down in the comments and tell me what state you are in and what is growing wild on your ground, because I will tell you the truth. Half the plants that will feed your hens have a local name I have never heard in my life, and I want them. My granny knew maybe a dozen. Somebody's granny knew a different dozen. I read every one of these. Next time, I am going to tell you about the hour. There is one particular hour of the day to feed a hen in December, and I would bet money it is not the one you are using, and it changes how she gets through the night. Granny fed at that hour every winter of her life, and I never once heard her explain why. Until then, go on out there and take a good look at what is coming up in the places you have been mowing all summer. Some of that is the feed you have been driving to town for.